Hello and welcome to another episode of UK Crossover, your UK-based Philadelphia 76ers podcast. As always, I'm joined by Sam Oakley. Sam, how you doing?
Um, Not good. How
I
about
wonder
you?
why. I would say the same. It's been a bit of a whirlwind few days across sport, but when we focus more so on the NBA, this is in my short amount of time, my 6 years of being a Sixers fan. This is the worst it's been for me. Um, 2-9 start. We are the second to worst team in the NBA. By end of tonight, we could be the worst team in the NBA. But bizarrely enough, and we'll talk about before we came on, there has been some nice moments in amongst the losses, and indeed there was a win to add to the column since we last spoke. But it's been rough. It's been a challenge, and it's been pretty embarrassing, to be honest. So let's try and break down what the hell's going wrong. I mean, I guess the first question I want to put forward to you. I think there's this narrative that some people are saying that okay, don't worry, we'll get our guys back, and then what's going to happen is we're going to get a run together. We'll get into the playoffs. We'll get the fourth seed, get the fifth seed. Happy days. Eastern Conference Finals, easy. Then Maxey gets injured. Paul George is on a minutes restriction. Embiid is slightly rusty. Um, is it time to panic?
It's it's very much getting there. I think tonight's game's going to be a big one for us because it's a conference game. So you wanna win those. You know, the West Coast shit that we just had, it wasn't great. Naturally, it's still L's in the column, but it's not a massive on the ceiling as we found out last year when we were trying to get. We had to do the play in because the way that the head to head worked and the cup and stuff. So like it meant we were on the same record as Magic, but Magic were straight into the playoffs. So it is an important game tonight for that. But if we lose tonight, I will start thinking about the panic button
Hmm.
because they're not good. I know we're going to talk about it later on as well about Embiid, but like Embiid back to backs, even though he said about it, not sure. Paul George on the minute restriction still. So if we lose our next two or three games, it's definitely panic station because I don't know where we're going to get a big run from, where we'd then get into the fourth seed. I think the fifth seed is realistic still and six, but I think top four is a real push if you start the season with 10, 11 losses before Thanksgiving, which
Yeah.
is not great.
Yeah, and we are only 4 games behind. Would be the immediate rebuttal. 4 games behind, I believe the Magic, who are in the fourth or fifth seed. I can't quite remember which one, but I think people easily forget. I mean, even when we were fully healthy with our better sides, be that with Harden or when perhaps things were um, a bit more linked up when we had Ben Simmons. I know we could talk about the faults of him, but there was a time when that actually worked. When things have been going well, we do still get those crazy losses which make zero sense, and there has to be an acceptance that even when we get our guys healthy, we will still have those crazy losses. But at least when you have all your guys healthy, you allow that margin for error. But with every loss that takes place, with every game which we don't quite go for it because we're putting people on minutes restrictions, because we're taking it easy on certain players, that margin for error gets so tight to the point of microscopic.
Mm.
So that's where my real concern is that in this never-ending quest to try and catch up, are we going to run our guys into the ground inadvertently when initially we're trying to save them for the playoffs, and then what actually has happened is that we killed them before getting to the playoffs? We've actually, been the masterminds of our own failure here. So that is my real concern. But we did have an opportunity, albeit a semi-brief one, to see what a PG and Embiid-led team looked like, and that was against the Knicks. And there was a lot of issues with that Knicks game. I think anyone who knows the Sixers well enough would have probably understood Embiid was going to come out rusty. He wasn't going to be having his best game, and he didn't. So it is what it is. But he does make us look better. And,
Mm.
and that's because of the gravity he provides. That's because he makes defenders want to go towards him, and that opens up space for everyone else. And that's where Paul George had one of his best games, if not probably his best game for the Sixers. 29 points, 7 out of 11 from three. In that game especially, because that is probably a bit more of an accurate representation of where we are at when we are fully healthy, did you see enough to feel a bit more confident especially since we would expect Tyrese Maxey to be back and make that team even better.
Yeah, 100%. You know what? One of the biggest disappointments this season has been Andre Drummond. Me and you've been big advocates of him. So excited for him, but the pick and roll and screen game by Drummond hasn't been there. But when Embiid was in, his screen game, the pick and roll. He just demands attention, and Drummond should as well. Not necessarily because he's going to score, but because he's there for the rebound. Like the other team should be like really worried about, oh, Drummond's going to get the offensive rebound, get it out to a shooter, and the Sixers are going to score. But he's not been. He's been beaten by little shorter players than
Yeah.
him. Less muscular, and Embiid made a massive difference in that. And I don't know if that's because Drummond was playing more minutes than he should, whereas when Embiid's back, you're looking at more like 18 to 20-minute range for Drummond. And then you think, okay, maybe he's like reserving some stuff, because he's a bit older now and he's used to being a legit backup. So I thought there was definite sort of positivity to take out of that game, despite the fact he worried me going out early and also not putting up a great night. But as you say, we know Embiid doesn't always start off MVP Embiid when he plays his first game back from an injury.
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely loved what PG brought, and regardless of the loss, that was my big takeaway. And I think that filled me with a lot of positives. Like, I hate losing to New York. It seems to be an all too frequent occurrence over the last year, and I want that to change course sooner or later. But there was some positives, absolutely. And I think on the Drummond point, because you were right, we were singing his praises, and it's still a very good acquisition. And I think I was listening to a podcast somewhere about this, and I thought it was a very interesting point is that people are just saying, well, why doesn't he just do what he does off the bench? And this is something you were alluding to. Well, let's think about what would be happening if he's coming off the bench. It doesn't really matter if he picks up two quick ones if he's coming off the bench. He's coming off the bench, presumably when we have a lead, because we would have started with Maxey, George, and Embiid. So if you come off the bench and you're playing with a 6-point lead, the pressure's off. If you're coming off the bench knowing you can be yourself, you can be aggressive, because if you get 2 fouls, it's not the end of the world. You can play a lot more aggressive. So it completely changes the complexion of the game. So, I do think, of course, you got to give him time to just actually have the opportunity to figure out what his legitimate role is. Because right now, he hasn't actually played his proper role yet, apart from one game. And even then, Embiid is on a bit of a leash. So I do hope that sorts itself out, but that has given an opportunity for the likes of Adam Bona. Recently had a few minutes, which I really like the look of, but more so Gershon Yabusele at the 5. Now, we talked about it right before the season started. He is an unknown quantity. I still don't think I know fully what his game is like. I still don't think I know fully how I rate him. I don't think he's bad. I'm very very much leaning more towards good. But I've been super super impressed with what he has been bringing thus far. If I look at his statistics here, he's averaging 10 points, 5 rebounds, 38% from 3, averaging 4 a game, and he's got double digits multiple times already this season. I mean, how impressive has he been?
He has been. He's been really good, and I've kind of tamed down the hype for him in our chats, which I know is great. The community we've created now that you've got there. What the new community is with the Sixers group, and it's great having loads of Sixers fans chat in there and stuff. It's great to interact with people, but some people have been going full in on him, and I'm like, I want to tame it down because I haven't seen him play against a legit team fully healthy with us being healthy, and some of his points have come when there's been a bit of a gap, that we've been behind by a dozen points or whatever. But for me, he looks like a great acquisition, and I think coming off the bench for 15 to 18 minutes, maybe a 7th or 8th man, I think he'll really suit that role going up
Yeah.
against our backups.
Hmm.
Like I say, he's unknown against legit starters at the moment. But again, I don't think Nurse knows his best. Like, I think we've been trying to guess it, haven't we? But I don't think Nurse knows his best 5. But he's got to be in that conversation now. And I think we'll only know in maybe tonight and going forward when he has played alongside MB George, and we might even have to wait till Maxi comes back as well, because again, McCain, which I know you're going to get onto, all the guys that are shining at the moment, those two in particular, they're getting a lot of shot volume, whereas they won't get that when they're with those guys on the court. But I do like Yabi at the five because I think if Drummond does get into trouble, you can trust him to play a bit of small ball against your teams that are still trying to do the Golden State Warriors model going forward, like the Knicks and some of the other teams in the NBA still.
Mm. Yeah, I think he's a bit of a duality with him because he's suffering from similar issues to Drummond in that he's getting almost too many minutes. He still hasn't. He's not yet played the role he legitimately should be playing on this team. So I'd actually expect him to be better further down the line. But equally, and I'm not sure if this makes any sense, there's something about him which makes me think he's the sort of player that you can't play in the playoffs. I'm not sure if that's just a vague conceptualization that has no real basis, but he just seems like that. And I don't know if that makes any sense to you, but I'm just getting that vibe
Mm.
that for whatever reason, we won't be able to play him in the playoffs. And that's maybe just the brutal cynicism I have when it comes to the Sixers. And, you've been burnt too many times by this franchise. So we're just going to have to wait and see. But I've been really, really happy with what I am seeing so far. So I really can't complain. And one of our other, I mean, we did say we want to focus on Jerry McCain, and we will. One of our other preseason acquisitions, Caleb Martin, admittedly, I say the last 2 or 3 games he's been a lot better. And I think defensively is great. I think driving to the rim, I think it's brilliant that he's got a variety of ways in which he can get points. But what was one of the reasons we were so sold on him was the fact that he could shoot reliably. But it wouldn't be the Philadelphia 76ers if someone forgets how to shoot. And that's what it looks like he has done. I mean, some of these shots are beelining. They are flat as anything. Uh, am I missing something? I mean, Dan from Miami Heat UK said it perfectly. Never trust a Miami player when they've left Miami.
Yeah, I was going to say that. Like, the reason why I didn't mind it is because he could have stayed in Miami. Miami wanted to keep him, and he come to us for less money, as we discussed on a previous pod at the start of the season. So I was quite confident because otherwise I'm like that. I'm like, is he just one of these guys at Miami just get the best out of, but no other team seems to be able to do that, And I was kind of super confident about Martin, but you are right, he hasn't been the best, and it's frustrating because there was moments in that Charlotte game when he was playing against his twin brother, and his twin brother was making some shots and he wasn't, and I was like, have we got the wrong one? But like he's great. He is going to be great. I think he's going to be a great addition. Still, I am confident because, like you say, the last few games have been a little bit better offensively, and he hasn't been terribly poor defensively. So defensively, he's still been okay. It's just been like you say, that shot has just not landed, and hopefully the floor will space up for him more. And we did see it in patches when Embiid was on the court. Like I said, him and PG, I felt definitely benefited from him being on the floor and me being on the floor. They definitely got a few open looks that I hadn't quite, unless we are watching these games at 1 o'clock in the morning sometimes, but I completely missed like some of the moments where I have seen it but Martin hasn't been open a lot, but when he had been in the last few games, he had missed them, but like I say, last few games he has been better. So let's just hope that continues tonight and he maybe has a 15 to 18 point game tonight against the Magic.
Well, I think it was either the last game or game before. I think it might be the Knicks game. I looked at the box score, and the box score doesn't tell the whole story, as we so often know. He just had like 17 points and 11 rebounds, and I think that's sort of one of the things he has been doing rather well. Is that he's filling out the stat sheet quite nicely, and I know someone actually asked him in an interview, like, "Well, what's going on with his shot?" And he was quite open and honest about it. He said, "Look, that's something for me to work on. I'll get it sorted." And I was like, "Yep, fair play, cool. Let's just hope it does." On the topic of herky jerky weird shot techniques, with the Sixers desperate for some sort of spark, there's nothing concrete in this, but I guess I'll put this question to you. Should the Sixers waive a player at the end of their bench, maybe a Reggie Jackson, maybe a Jeff Doughton, and sign Markel Fultz until the end of the season?
He burnt me. I don't know. Do you know what? How he played in Orlando towards the end, he did do well. But for me, there's a reason why Orlando didn't re-sign him, and I don't know. I don't know if that puts me off. And teams, things can happen. We know people get picked up off the street and they do really well. But there's a reason why he probably hasn't made a roster, and I don't know if the Sixers organization would go back in for him. but hypothetically, on paper, he is the sort of player we could do with. I would like a bit more of a quicker guard than Reggie Jackson, and I don't really want to have Lowry playing 40 odd minutes or close to that, every other game or every 3 or 4 games if there's a back to back. So it is a tough one. I don't. Part of me likes Reggie Jackson for the playoff side of it, because again, I think Fultz is that sort of player. I don't know if you could play him in the playoffs,
Yeah, yeah.
but you need someone to get you over the line to get to the playoffs. And is he that sort of player as well? And I'm so undecided. I know you're in on it.
I like the narrative. I really like the storybook of it all. But the thing is, everything you've said makes a lot of sense to me as well. Because I'm not being funny, and I'm sure you're thinking this as well. If we say we got rid of Reggie Jackson, couldn't you just easily see someone like maybe someone like the Magic saying, right, we'll take him then, or maybe someone like the Lakers saying, right, we'll take him then, and he'll just do bits. Because
Yeah,
I do think, look, he's had a poor start, but let's be quite frank here. He needs minutes. He needs consistent minutes, and then once he's had consistent minutes, and I feel the same about Eric Gordon, then we'll have a decent sample size to say this guy's good, this guy's bad. They shouldn't be playing as much as they have been in terms of it seems to be quite large chunks, but in actuality, it should be 10 to 15 minutes a night, give or take. Give him minutes, see what he does. Because he actually, the prototype that Reggie Jackson does offer is something that we could do with. Um I would say if we could, I'm not entirely wholly familiar on the contracts. I have a feeling Doughton is two-way and therefore it wouldn't work. But if we could get rid of Doughton for Fultz, I'll do it. It's not that I dislike Doughton. He's actually had some good sparks, but
yeah.
the upside for Fultz is a lot better. And Fultz is a better player. So I'd have to see, but I love the narrative. Imagine, and look, I'm talking about playoffs as a bit of a stretch at this early stage, let alone something grander than that. But the thought of Fultz coming back and doing something quite special with this team would be absolutely hilarious.
It would. And do you know what? I'm just getting up because I didn't have his stat. I should have had his stats ready because I knew you proposed this question. So I've just got them up now. The season before where he did 22-23 season, he's played 60, started 60, 29 minute, 20.9, yeah, pretty much 30 minutes, 14 points, nearly 6 assists a game, and nearly 4 rebounds a game. That sort of level is okay, but that's the only real season he's done. So for me, if he can replicate something like that, and even his last season, he had a couple of good games by the looks of it. The inconsistency of it, he probably does fit the Philadelphia 76ers how we are with the inconsistency, but there is a player in there at times. Um, and he is only 26, 27, so he is the
Mm.
young. So yeah, I do see where you're coming from as well. So it is a tough
Mm.
question. But
And
why is it not roster? That's what worries me.
yeah, and he's lengthy. He could defend, but I think this is one of those more pie in the sky scenarios. But it's a fun one, nonetheless. If it happened, I'm all in for it. Let's just see what happens. But I don't think it will. I do think someone's going to take him eventually. I do think someone's going to take him. He'll see out the year somewhere, and then try to get that contract which he seemingly was after in the summer. But moving on to the main event, and that is Rookie of the Year elect.
Oh
To,
yes.
to coin some political terms, a Rookie of the Year elect, Jared McCain. Do you know what's so refreshing about this is that regardless of what happens with PG and Embiid, that is our backcourt for the next 10 years. McCain and Maxey. I think there was a time at the start of the season where you're like, oh, maybe you flip it and maybe move him along to wherever to go get this player or that player. And I'm not saying he's untradeable, but what I am saying is that player better be good, whoever we're trading for. In fact, I'm to the point where probably most players I wouldn't bother trading because keeping him with Maxi, I think that's a brilliant backcourt of the future. I love him.
Yes. Yeah, I love him as well. My only thing is size. Like having them two would be really small, so we need to have big. So Embiid, I think, the poor guy, even though sometimes I'm like frustrated with him, and I will diss him. Don't get me wrong, or not diss him, but criticize him. And I have named my son after him, my youngest son. So I do love the guy, but he's only got a couple of years left. So we'd have to get another legit big man in for them two to work. And I think that's probably easier to find than a legit scoring duo like them two could be. I'm very impressed with him. I think at the moment for me, my vision for him is he's either a trade asset, as you've said, and we get a legit vet in, which I wouldn't put past Maury. But if not, I am super happy with him being like a sixth man this year. Get some minutes against the backups of some of these good teams and even the poor teams, and just keep this confidence going. And I think this has been great for him to start. But the thing is, he's not going to get the ball or the
Hmm.
sort of opportunities to shoot as often with the other three on the court because George and Maxi can create, and even MB can create their own shot. More so Maxi and George from the perimeter, whereas and MB can get his down low. So, and we know MB like he won't always pass out. He will try and do too much sometimes, especially when he's feeling himself. And then I think I'd rather have McCain in, definitely towards the end of games and stuff. But I think at certain points during the game, I'd rather him be like our number one scoring option rather than majority of his minutes being the number four scoring option.
Yeah. No, I think that's entirely fair, entirely reasonable. Um, yeah, he's been the one shining spark in an otherwise dismal season, to be quite frank.
100%.
Um, the last four games, he's really started to get it going. He's against Cleveland, the best team in the NBA right now. Career high 34 points, career high 10 assists, a double double. I've been so surprised. I think we knew roughly what sort of player he would be, i.e., 3-point volume scorer. But his playmaking has been really, really surprising. And that's why I really like the idea of perhaps in the future, him and Maxi together, because we've always said take the ball out of Maxi's hands and
Yeah.
let someone else do the job. And maybe he could be that guy. And with someone like Kyle Lowry around, we could talk about perhaps the faults of Lowry being his age, but my word, he's experienced.
Hmm.
So you can learn off some of the best. But over these last four games, 26 points per game, 10 threes a game, 42% from three.
Wow.
That is
I didn't know it was 40.
unreal.
That is. I did not know the 42%, I'll be honest with you. So that is fantastic. Yeah, I like you say, I don't know what the odds are, but we'll have a
He's
look.
favourite last time I checked. I mean,
Was he?
yeah, I saw it, albeit it was on a tweet from like NBA Central, but I looked at it, I think it was after the Knicks game, and he was 10-1. And then after the Cleveland game, I think he's odds on because no one else has really jumped out.
No, well, no, because I think with this year's class, it was a bit unknown because you had a lot of the foreign players coming over, and they were like, are they going to be ready for the NBA? And now they're talking about an NBA European League coming into play, aren't they? Because of the amount of European players coming over and getting used to the NBA rules over the FIBA rules. And I think some people are taking longer to adapt, but I think he's definitely come out the gates there. I can't have a look on. I've tried looking, but yeah, he's definitely come out the gates. By the end of the season, one of these some of the French guys that came up in the top half of the draft, they might end up being the rookies of the year. But I think he's going to be in conversation between now and the end of the year if he
Mm.
carries on this level of play.
Yeah, I think all rookie team is certainly.
Yeah.
I would have good money on that. Whether or not he's able to get rookie of the year simply because of the minutes we can offer him or we can't offer him, I guess would be the phrase to put it. It remains to be seen. But I'm so excited by what we're seeing so far, and long may it continue. So I guess I've got 2 points left to put to you. One of them being the predictions over the upcoming stretch, but one which is slightly, I don't know how to feel about it. We had the back to backs. We know Embiid's stance on back to backs. He said, "I'm not going to be doing them in because he wants to preserve his body," and fair enough. And
Mm.
then he said, "I want to play against Cleveland. I'm just a troll." And this is after we've lost the Knicks, whom we hate, whom we were embarrassed by, um, and we've been embarrassed all season. And you come out with something like that, and it feels disingenuous. It's not a troll. It's not because you were trying to have a joke at our expense at the start of the season. It's revisionist because you didn't realize we'd be this bad. So we're not having a good time. We're not here to have a laugh. Just now's not the time. It was very tone deaf, I felt, and to the point of just very annoying.
Mm. Yeah. I do not disagree one bit with you. I was very much in the case of you're 31 now, I think. 30. You need to grow up a little bit with the trolling stuff. And I want you just to focus on playing basketball, keeping healthy. Don't get yourself into any trouble. Like him saying that stuff just meant that the league, and obviously the league investigated. I was just like, you didn't need to say about that at the start of the season. Then you come out in the post game and say, yeah, I'm not going to about the backs. And I think that was him. I think that was him trolling again, though, like the Cavs and the NBA media by going, "Oh yeah, I'm not going to." Right, and I think he also did it because he knew it was a TNT game, and he knows Shaq will criticize him for not playing back to backs, and Shaq fairly said to him, "How does he want to be remembered?" And he's got to think about his legacy. And I think the trolling, if he stops it or reduces it, will help with his legacy. Because the reason why he's hated is because he does tweet out stuff. Normally he's watching some sort of footy/soccer game, while there's a big NBA game on, and or there's something going around the NBA, and he'll slyly tweet something that's about the football, but
Yeah, I'll misconstrue it purposely.
yeah, and it's just like, you don't need to do that, mate. Just kind of focus on your basketball. So it is frustrating. But I think from what I've heard and stuff, it seems like it's his decision whether he does play back to backs as well as he's got like a 70-80% say in it from what I got told from a beat reporter. The Sixers will obviously say, we don't want you going out there. It's a risk. You're our asset and we pay you. But if he really wants to play, he can play back to backs, at some point of the season. So if let's see if he's going to keep his word to it in that interview, or whether he's just doing it for TNT.
Yeah. I think, yeah, we've got a short fuse, and of course we all love the guy, but now's not the time. But yeah, the Sixers, we now have 3 games, all of which are road games or away games, whatever you want to call it, starting in Orlando, then heading to Miami, then heading to Memphis. Now, it's worth noting that the Sixers are actually yet to win in regulation this season,
Good
which
point.
is pretty nuts when you come to think of it. The Charlotte win was a great win, I must admit. Absolute, fair play. And the LaMelo Ball's shot was nuts. Likewise, Tyrese Halliburton's shot was nuts. But the fact that we haven't won in regulation yet is still pretty nuts as well. So, Orlando, we've sung the praises of Orlando an awful lot. They are going to be without Wendell Carter. They are going to be without Paolo Banchero. But this is still a very tough team.
Mm. Two players I like. Bankero's. He's one of my favorite players to watch outside of the Sixers, and yeah, if he's out for sure, then that's great news for the Sixers, and I think that means that we've got a fantastic chance to win that game, even though it is away. And it'd be nice to win in the cup as well. I think, I do think a cup run, if we call it that in the NBA, would be nice.
The magic of the cup.
Exactly. There we go. I like it. I like it. We need to clip that out and then put that on every social that little gag there. But yeah, no, I do think it'd be a good game. Because of the start, I'm very, I'm not convinced. Like, if you said to me, if we were like had four wins or even 5 wins under our belt, I'd have said, yeah, Sixers win. But I'm so not sure. But do you know what? I'll say Sixers win. What are you going for?
Um, yeah, I'll go Sixers win. Embiid, George, McCain's in good form. We got to win one of these. And to be fair, thankfully, all these 3 games are spaced out quite nicely. So I expect our guys to, as in our top 2 guys, to probably play all 3.
Mm.
Orlando, the thing is that they just got a very good defensive team. They got KCP, who's a brilliant defender, Jalen Suggs, and I feel that every game I watch him, he's better and better and better.
Mm.
Excuse me. So, what I've noticed this season from him is obviously his defense he's one of the best defensive guards in the league. But offensively, he's taken a turn up to what we thought he was going to be in the draft. So he's in that sort of late teens, early 20s now.
Hmm.
So he's a guy we've got to watch out for, and he always seems to have brilliant games against us. Banchero is a real shame, because I actually remember you talking about how much you like the guy, and I think maybe the day or 2 after he gets that 50-point game, and I was thinking it's pretty apt that this happens, but yeah, real shame that he won't be playing for the neutral. Franz Wagner, bit of a down year, but he's a very good player. Lengthy, can score from just about anywhere. So that's a guy to watch. But this is a really well assembled team, and everyone is big. Like they're big, they're lengthy, they can defend, and most of them have a good way in which they can create their own offense. So it'll be tough, but let's go optimistic and say a win. Miami, uh, they're weird. I don't know what to make of them. I mean, I think I say that every year, but this season especially, they seem like such a unknown quantity.
Mm. You know what? I don't. I'll go. They get the best out of players, right? So I expect a Burks, or I expect some of these players they've picked up that have been around the league, a few years to get in their small amount of minutes, off the bench and that to be really good for them. Because it's away, I'll probably say a Heat win on that one.
Yeah, I feel like we never do well down in Miami. I know we won there last year in the regular season. I remember watching us play down in Miami when I was in Philly actually, and we managed to scrape by with a really valiant win. But then when we played them in the play-in, I mean, we scraped by them. No thanks to Nicholas Batum, who of course we won't be taking down with us as much as I wish we were.
Mm.
Now they've changed a bit, Miami. Don't get me wrong; they're a bit more in disarray. I've heard stuff about how Bam perhaps isn't at his best, and Jimmy will one night get you 6 points, and the next night get you 50. And you never quite know what you're going to get with him. But this is a game he will be up for obvious reasons. Um, so I think on the balance of probabilities, we're probably gonna lose that game, and that one's on the Monday, so it does space out nicely. It's a short trip from Orlando to Miami. We'll probably fly it, but it's one of those ones you can actually probably drive.
Yeah.
But yeah, that should give us enough time to adequately rest. So we still got every chance, but I'm going to say that will be a loss as well, which leads us to Memphis, who
Yeah.
schooled us when we played them last. What is it? Huff, the big gangly 7 foot center that got about 6, 7, 8 threes. We've got to make sure we guard him. I can't handle that again. Firstly, I mean, it's worth saying what a player what a pickup that was. I mean, fair play to the bloke. He looks very good.
Mm.
Then equally, they got that a Wells guy who's fantastic, like a young pick. Aldana, the 7 foot power forward who can shoot from the corners, lights out. They're a really well assembled team. I know the focus will always be on Jar, who's getting better every game. But I really like the team they've got down together there. And again, I in Memphis, if this was in Philly, I could maybe see us taking it. But I think that one might just be a loss, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's a tough one because I do think if we had Maxi, I'd really fancy that because it would make Jar work a lot harder. And I think that's a good little battle like whenever we've watched them two play. So yeah, I think we have to go Memphis,
Mm.
Memphis in, which does then put you in the worrying section because 1 and 2 then keeps you in a real low percentage of the win column. Um,
But then it's worth noting. I think the reason why perhaps we're probably being erred on the side of caution here is we're still not sure what Embiid and George looks like. We could probably assume that Paul George is still going to be closer to what we know Paul George to be.
mm,
Embiid, we don't. But let's just say tonight Embiid drops 35, Paul George gets a nice 20 something. My complexion changes. And then if that, takes its momentum on into Miami and on into Memphis, it sounds daft, but that means we could probably win all three. Because if even without Maxi, if we're playing at our best with those players, we beat all those teams.
hmm
So it can just completely change at the drop of a hat. So we're just going to have to see, and I guess that's what we're going to have to hope for. Has there been enough time for it to then actually click? Who knows? But it's. I'm not saying it will, but it's got to click eventually, or it has to, or else there is no playoffs.
Yeah, you're right. We like you said at the start of this, it's all about preserving, getting ready for the playoffs. You've got to get there first,
Hmm.
and yeah, and I completely agree. Our perception will change. our socials and the WhatsApp stuff will go off non-stop if we have a big win tonight. And like you say, the guys go off. And when you look at it on paper, you can argue in Memphis, but for every game, you've got two players that are probably the best two on the court, or if not, out of the, if you rank one to five, you've got two or three there. You've got the top out of two players that will be in
Yeah.
most top three or four if they were independent to being a fan of either team. Like I say, definitely top five. So you've got that on the court every time. So it will change the complexion of it, but we'll have to see how tonight goes first.
One game at a time, and then we can start deluding ourselves, or at least he's hoping. Anyway, I believe that's all we got time for. Enjoy the rest of your evening before the inevitable pain and misery comes.
Yes.
Thanks so much as always for joining. Sam, where can we find you?
Yes, I'm on Twitter as Sam UK Sixers fan. I'm also on the new platform that I can't remember what it's called now.
Is that Blue Sky?
Blue Sky. Yeah, I've tried.
Okay.
Looks like the old Twitter, so that's fun. And then obviously I'm on part of the WhatsApp groups, which I'll let you introduce in 2 seconds.
Yeah. So I'm over on Twitter or X at UK76ers, and I probably should head on over to Blue Sky. I haven't properly investigated that yet, but that's something I need to look at. If you do want to join some of our chats, so we have a WhatsApp group chat. We are part of the PSI Philly Sports International community, which isn't just for Sixers, it's for Flyers, it's for college, it's for Eagles, it's for Phillies. And that gives you an opportunity to interact with loads of like-minded individuals based in the UK who have that shared passion for Philadelphia sports. So if you do fancy joining that and getting involved in our WhatsApp groups, we have a brilliant community, all of whom will welcome you with open arms and just want to chat sports. So if that sounds like something that's up your alley, absolutely drop me a message on Twitter and we'll get you in as soon as possible. So it is another important week. It has been another miserable week. Let's hope that this time next week when we chat again, it's going to be a bit better for us. Anyway, that's going to be bye from me.
Bye, everyone, and let's go Sixers.
Let's go Sixers indeed. See you later, guys.